Right now, you can open a small app on your phone and drop a thought into it before it disappears. A grocery list, a password hint, a strange dream, a birthday, an address, a phrase you want to use later. You do not need to hold it inside your head. You tap the glass, save the fragment, and move on. It feels ordinary. It feels harmless. It feels like memory finally became easy. But for most of human existence, nothing like that existed. No notes app, no paper in a pocket, no calendar alert, no saved screenshot, no search bar waiting to rescue a forgotten detail. If a water source mattered, someone had to remember it. If a plant could feed you, poison you, heal a wound, or make you sick, someone had to remember that too. If a trail became dangerous in one season and life-saving in another, the knowledge could not live in a cloud. It had to live in bodies, voices, scars, habits, and places. So how did ancient humans remember what mattered before notes apps, writing, paper, or phones? The answer is not simply that they had better memories. Ancient humans were not walking hard drives. They lived inside memory systems. Their storage was not digital. It was landscape, rhythm, story, ritual, repetition, social teaching, and attention. And once you see that, your own phone begins to look less like a tool and more like a quiet replacement for an older human world. Most people imagine the past as a world before memory technology. First, there were primitive people trying to keep things in their heads. Then writing arrived. Then books. Then computers. Then phones. It sounds like a clean story of progress, but that picture is too simple. Archaeology and anthropology suggest something stranger. Long before formal writing, humans were already building ways to make knowledge durable. Writing itself is surprisingly recent when placed against the depth of human prehistory. Cuneiform emerged in Mesopotamia before about 3200 BC, and early examples were deeply tied to administration, accounts, rations, goods, the practical memory of cities. Imagine a clay tablet pressed by a reed stylus, not to preserve a poem at first, but to remember bread, beer, labor, sheep, grain. A city had grown too large for memory alone, so memory hardened into clay. That detail matters. Writing did not begin because humans suddenly became intelligent. It began because a new kind of society needed a new kind of storage. But thousands upon thousands of years before those tablets, humans were already leaving traces that suggest symbolic thought. At Blombos Cave in South Africa, researchers reported a cross-hatched ochre drawing on a silkrete flake from layers dated to about 73,000 years ago. We cannot know exactly what those lines meant. It would be reckless to call it a note, a map, or a message, but it was not random damage. A hand made marks with pigment on stone, creating a pattern that outlasted the moment. In the firelight, that small marked flake feels almost familiar. A human mind trying to put meaning somewhere outside the body. The real story becomes even more powerful when we look at living oral traditions carefully and respectfully, not as fossils of the past, but as evidence of what human memory can do under different conditions. In Aboriginal Australian traditions, songlines connect knowledge to landscape through story, song, movement, and place. A hill is not just a hill. A waterhole is not just a waterhole. A route is not just geography. It can carry ancestral narrative, law, ecological knowledge, direction, obligation, and belonging. To move through country is also to move through memory. The land itself becomes a vast archive, but it only opens for people trained to listen. Now imagine a child in a small foraging group, not learning from a textbook, but from repeated life. An elder points at a track after rain. Someone names a plant and warns what part not to eat. A story explains why a place must be avoided, or when an animal begins to move, or how arrogance can kill a hunter. Research on forager oral tradition argues that such knowledge takes years to master and depends heavily on intergenerational transmission. Survival knowledge was not a private file. It was passed through parents, elders, peers, stories, correction, embarrassment, imitation, and repetition. The group remembered together because no single mind was enough. This is where ancient memory stops looking like simple memorization. A modern list is separated from the body. It sits outside you. But ancient knowledge was often tied to action. You remembered a path by walking it. You remembered a plant by touching, smelling, preparing, and being warned about it. You remembered a story because it was sung at the right place, in the right season, by the right people, with emotion attached to every line. Memory loves place. It loves rhythm. It loves repetition. It loves fear, hunger, shame, grief, laughter, and belonging. Modern cognitive science uses the term cognitive offloading for the way we reduce mental demand by putting information into the world. A note, a reminder, a calendar, a saved contact. This is not foolish. It is one of the things humans do best. We use the world to help us think. But there is a difference between using the world as a partner and letting it become the only place where memory lives. Ancient humans also offloaded memory. They did not keep everything floating inside the skull. They used stones, marks, songs, paths, gestures, tools, ceremonies, repeated tasks, and social roles. But those systems usually demanded participation. You could not merely save the knowledge and ignore it. You had to rehearse it, walk it, sing it. Watch someone correct your mistake. Feel why it mattered. Knowledge was stored outside the individual, but it was not detached from the individual. A phone note can preserve a sentence perfectly while letting the meaning grow cold. An ancient story could change in performance, but it was kept warm by bodies. It had breath in it. It had witnesses. It had consequences. If you forgot where water might be found, the cost was not inconvenience. If you forgot which route was dangerous, the cost was pain. If you forgot kinship obligations, the cost could be conflict, exile, or shame. Memory was not an accessory. It was infrastructure. This does not mean ancient people remembered everything perfectly. Oral knowledge can shift. Stories can change. People can forget. Communities can lose things through death, violence, displacement, or disaster. The past was not magical, but the pressure on memory was different. In a world without external abundance, forgetting was not just personal failure. It was a break in the chain between generations. Think about what that does to attention. If knowledge must survive inside people, then people must become worth listening to. Elders matter because they are not merely old. They are living storage. Children matter because they are the future location of the group's memory. Repetition is not boring. It is preservation. Ritual is not decoration. It is a way to make memory emotional, social, and difficult to erase. A story told at the same place, again and again, is not just entertainment. It is a lock on forgetting. This is why the modern image of primitive memory fails. We often measure intelligence by how much information can be extracted from the body and stored somewhere else. A file is efficient. A database is searchable. A phone can remember more names than any one person. These are real gains. Modern life has protected us from many ancient terrors: hunger, exposure, untreated injury, isolation, and the silence of not knowing. But something changes when remembering no longer requires relationship. You can save a birthday and still not feel close to the person. You can save a recipe and never learn the smell of it from someone's hands. You can save a location and never build a mental map of the streets. You can save a quote and never let it alter your behavior. The information survives, but does it live? Ancient memory was often slower because it had to enter the nervous system. It moved through muscles, senses, and social pressure. It had to be repeated until it became available under stress. A hunter cannot scroll while tracking. A gatherer cannot search the internet while deciding whether a plant is safe. A group moving through darkness cannot outsource judgment to a glowing rectangle. The knowledge has to be close enough to the body that fear does not erase it. That kind of memory is not only mental, it is emotional and spatial. A dangerous place is remembered with tension in the stomach. A good camp is remembered with the smell of smoke and the relief of water. A warning story is remembered because the characters carry fear, humor, or grief. A song is remembered because rhythm gives the mind a path to walk. This is one reason oral systems can be so powerful. They do not ask memory to remain abstract. They give it a body. The deep twist is that ancient humans did not lack memory technology. They had memory technology everywhere. It was just not made of glass, electricity, and servers. It was made of landscapes, marks, melodies, elders, rituals, tools, repeated routes, and shared attention. Their memory systems were not primitive versions of our apps. In some ways, our apps are thin versions of their worlds. Because a Note app stores information, but it does not tell you what deserves reverence. It can remind you to buy food, but it cannot teach you hunger. It can store a map, but it cannot make you belong to a place. It can hold the name of a plant, but not the smell of the crushed leaf in a grandmother's hand. It can keep a password, but not a lineage. It can preserve a thought, but not always deepen it. And yet the point is not to reject the phone. Modern external memory is extraordinary. It helps people manage illness, work, families, language, travel, aging, and overload. It protects fragile details from disappearing. It gives a single person access to more stored knowledge than an ancient community could imagine. The danger is not that we write things down. Humans have always placed memory outside the head. The danger is when external memory no longer asks anything of us. Your Notes app is full because your world is full. Too many tasks, too many accounts, too many signals, too many names, dates, links, numbers, promises, fragments, and half-thoughts. The phone is not just a convenience. It is also evidence of a life too crowded to be remembered in the old way. You are not weak for using it. You are adapted to a world that constantly asks you to remember more than a human life was once built to hold. But when everything is saved, something else can quietly disappear. The act of returning. Ancient memory systems forced people back to the story, back to the path, back to the elder, back to the season, back to the group. Modern memory often lets us abandon the thing the moment it is captured. We mistake storage for knowing. We mistake retrieval for understanding. We mistake not losing information for keeping it alive. Go back to your Notes app. Look at the little fragments waiting there. Groceries, passwords, ideas, addresses, reminders, names. It is useful. It is merciful. It saves you from carrying everything alone. But it also replaces a world where memory lived between people, where knowledge had to be practiced, corrected, sung, walked, and felt. The technology changed. The need did not. You are still an ancient body trying to remember what matters inside a modern storm of information. And maybe the question is not whether your phone can store your life. Maybe the question is whether your life is still entering you deeply enough to be remembered.